Hey, this is Could Be Wrong, and I have a main theory about Ghost Power Book Force, which I think you might agree with or you might not. Okay, so boom, let's get into it. Episode 1, Season 1, Episode 1. So I'm not going to go over the whole thing. I'm just going to let you know essentially the Easter eggs that I found in the episode that I think will very much support my theory of the whole thing. It's like a whole bust down, and this is all only about Tommy. So this is not, I'm not bringing well, I am going to bring other characters into it, but I guess you'll see why. So in the first episode, it starts off with Tommy's mom saying, and I quote, "You can't just pick up and leave everyone and everything you've known behind." So the reason why I think that is important is because Kate is actually the one who ended up picking up and leaving everyone and everything she's known behind. And I'm going to go into that reason why. So essentially my theory is boom, like the whole theory, the ball buster, whatever you want to call it, surprise, Trojan horse, whatever you want to call it, is that Walter Flynn is Tommy Egan's father. Okay, you heard me? So Walter Flynn is Tommy Egan's dad, and Tommy Egan's actually the oldest of his children. Okay, so let's get into it. So episode 1, Tommy's looking at a picture of him in front of his grandma's house in Chicago, right? Which means he grew up there. Okay, so they're kind of letting us know that, Tommy has history in Chicago, even before we saw the picture of him and JP, of them going to school together. Okay, and then they try and distract us with, the Hispanic guy, and he's saying he's the thug man, because they only briefly go through that where he looks at the picture and then he's in front of the house. So Tommy, he did know that he did have a small history, but I think he has even more of a history. Okay, so, and then we end up knowing that he's in Mulhern's, that his grandma's in Mulhern's. And I actually think that Walter Flynn is the one that's paying for his grandma to stay at Mulhern's. Because when JP and Tommy actually had their first interaction, Tommy asked him blatantly, "Who's paying for the lady to stay there?" And JP's like, "Oh, I have no idea." But I think that Walter Flynn is actually the one that's paying for her stay there, because she's connected to Kate, who's connected to Walter Flynn. Okay, so let's go into the first interaction with Vic and Tommy in front of the bar. So Vic and Tommy, their relationship, they give me very much brothers. They had clashed in the beginning because they have the same personality, the same mannerisms, because they both share the same dad. Walter Flynn is not only Vic's dad, but Tommy's dad as well. So they had a clash in the beginning because they had the same personality. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so now we get into Tommy essentially, talking to Polly. I'm just gonna go ahead and point out the scenes, right, that stood out to me. So okay, so now we get into the scene of Tommy talking to Polly. And Polly asks him, "You coming or going?" And Tommy says, "Yeah, I'm going." So Polly says, "Wise choice after pissing off the Flynn family." And Tommy says, "Is that name supposed to mean something to me?" So in my opinion, I think that's foreshadowing. I think they're doing actually the opposite. So Tommy is telling him, "Is that name supposed to mean something to me?" But actually, that name is supposed to mean something to him, because Tommy actually is a Flynn. That, for me, in my opinion, that's just more foreshadowing. So we get into the scene where now Tommy, he goes to Walter Flynn's house because he's been causing a lot of ruckus. So they're talking, and their relationship, to me, something that he says that, "Where are you going, son?" Now, we could say the son part is because of his Irish banter. That's just how he talks. But for me, I really don't think so. He specifically says, "Where are you going, son?" Which to me is even more foreshadowing. And then in the next scene, he says it again. "You got to get the out of my city, son." So Walter Flynn not only calls him son, not once, but twice in one scene together. And this is the first scene that they're in together. And look at the way that Vic, anyway, my point was I was going to say that is that Walter Flynn looks at Vic with such disdain. Look at his face when he's looking at Vic. Next point. Okay, so what we're going to get into right now is we're actually going to get into Tommy and Claudia's relationship. Because they're trying to make it seem like Claudia and Tommy, they're romantically involved. But for me, in my opinion, I think their relationship, it gives very brother and sister. It gives Tommy's the older brother and she's the younger sister that wants to be like her older brother. Because if you think about it, yeah, they kissed, but that was really for Dahlia. So for me, in my eyes, that doesn't really make sense. Like, that doesn't really coordinate. It doesn't compute to me because that's his younger sister. Okay, and I think that it's going to come down to the Flynn dynasty. And the reason why I'm bringing it back to the Flynn dynasty is because if we go back to episode 1, we see Claudia sitting, and like the introduction to the Flynn family is actually Claudia first sitting in her dad's chair. And I remember something that Walter Flynn said to Claudia. He said, "You think because you beat your brother in a couple of games of chess, you're ready for the streets." So for me, this is foreshadowing that Claudia has always been smarter. She's always thought essentially 5 steps ahead of her brother. And she's the one who's actually going to end up with the Flynn dynasty. And actually, I think there's going to be a fight for the Flynn dynasty. I think that once Vic finds out that Tommy Egan is actually his older brother, who actually is a Flynn, because Walter Flynn, he's very family oriented. And Walter is all about family and he wants Vic to take over the business, and he's there and he says, "Yes, I'll take over the business." But for me, he's not, his body language says something else. He obviously wants to be with Gloria, but he can't because of the obligations that he has. But Tommy Egan's not Gloria. If Tommy Egan ends up being his oldest brother, actually, he's going to take that as he's going to leave. In my opinion, I think that Vic is going to leave. He's going to leave, maybe end up looking for Gloria, whatever it is. But Claudia is the one who's going to end up with the Flynn dynasty. She is the one who is going to end up abandoning Dahlia, okay, and actually reigning the Flynn family, whatever, heir. Because I think that once Tommy finds out actually he's even a Flynn, he's not going to want anything to do. Tommy has always wanted his own thing. And he has reconfirmed that by telling Liliana, I've always worked with a partner, but I finally have my own thing and this is what I want. So him joining the Flynn dynasty, that's like being a part of something essentially that's not his own. So in my opinion, I don't think he's going to want to take over the Flynn family, which is why I think Claudia is the one who ultimately, in the end, no matter what's going on, in the end, whether Walter Flynn dies, whether Tommy is her brother, whatever, she's going to end up being the heir to the Flynn throne, even though Tommy is a candidate for the throne. And also, if you really think about it, this show is called Power Book. And it's essentially about all of the different characters willing and hungry for power. Claudia's the type of person, she is hungry for power because her dad doesn't give her any. Tommy's the type, he's hungry for power because he's always had a partner, so now he wants something else. Vic is hungry for power because he wants to get under from his dad's control. It's like everybody, Jannar, all the characters, they all want power. But I think that this specific storyline in which Tommy ends up being Walter Flynn's son, not only his son, but his eldest son. Okay, and the eldest is supposed to take the throne. So you're going to see the power dynamic change. I do have a couple of other theories about other characters and things such as JP. In my opinion, JP knows a little bit more than he's leading on, but I guess we'll get into that in another video. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you think I could be wrong or if you think I could be right. But at the end of the day, it's still my opinion, which could be wrong.